Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to my review of tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw. And tonight's Raw was held from Memphis, Tennessee, at the FedEx Forum. And I thought tonight's Raw, I enjoyed the show tonight. I thought Raw was a solid show tonight, solid, decent show. And I thought it was much better than last week. It was a much better show than last week's Raw. And we are 2 weeks away from the Raw 25 show that's happening here in New York. It's going to be held in two venues. It's going to be held at the Manhattan Center and at the Barclays Center. And I wish I was going to that show at the Barclays, but man, the ticket prices for the show are so damn expensive. It's like for lower level, it's like $300, $200 on TickPick from what I saw, and the only levels that are the cheapest that I could possibly could get if I was going to the show possibly will be in like the 200 level, which that's all the way up. So I sat up there for when I attended my first Raw in 2014. So look back at my videos and my video of when I went there. It was October of 2014. Look back at my videos and you'll see how high I was sitting when Raw was at the Barclays for that show, for that Raw. But that Raw 25 show is expected to be one of the biggest shows in Raw history, because we have legends returning. We got Shawn Michaels returning, Triple H, Undertaker, of course. We got Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, the APA, Farouk and JBL, the Outlaws. Brock Lesnar, of course, is going to make an appearance because he's got to be there to hype up his match with him, Strowman, and Kane for the Royal Rumble for the Universal title. And also the Bellas are going to be there, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, which that's really awesome. Glad that Austin is making an appearance for Raw 25 because he's got to be there. But like I said, this is shaping up to be the best, one of the best shows in Raw history. So there's no possible way that WWE could fuck up Raw 25. There's no possible way. So, but that's happening in 2 weeks. Like I said, wish I was going to the show. So, and then we're 3 weeks away until the Royal Rumble. So, but the show opened up with tonight with Roman Reigns coming out. He comes out. He says, after all the attacks and hype, he thought Samoa Joe was ready for him, and he says, Joe wasn't ready, and that's why he's still the Intercontinental Champion. He goes on to say that he was fighting for a purpose, and he was fighting for Dean Ambrose. And he goes on to say that anyone in the locker room, if they mess with the Shield, they mess with all three of them. So, but lately the Shield reunion has been kind of a disappointment, because now you got Ambrose out, and Jason Jordan, is one half of the Raw Tag Team Champions with Seth Rollins. But Jason Jordan ends up coming out. He says to Roman, that when he watched, his match with Joe last week, he got goosebumps, and that he was part of something meaningful. And he goes on to say to Roman that on behalf of him and Seth, he congratulates Roman. Seth Rollins ends up coming out and says to Jason that he has a lot to learn, and that he has to work on Jason has to work on his timing. And he goes on to say that Jason is ruining Roman's moment. And Jason goes on to say that they are all champions and that they run the show, which was kind of corny, very, very corny of Jason Jordan. And so that brings out Finn Balor, Luke Gallows, and Karl Anderson. Finn Balor says to Jason, does he really think that he's part of the dominant factor in WWE? And he then takes jabs to Jason Jordan, saying, he didn't know Curt, that Curt was that Jason Jordan is Curt's son. And he was just Finn Balor was just taking jabs at Jason Jordan. He was talking about how years ago with him and with Luke Gallows and Karl Anderson, just making references to when they were in the Bullet Club. And if this is a way of a step of making Finn Balor turn heel, I think this is good for Finn, because a lot of people have said it's time to turn Finn heel, because of his what he's what the purpose of him doing now, of WWE, given of how Vince McMahon doesn't see Finn as a top guy, and how he doesn't want to win back the Universal title, and just putting Finn with jobbers. I think this is really good of them putting Finn with Gallows and Anderson, and it's just a really good pairing. It's really good. It's good booking. Good booking of putting them together. And so Anderson says the three of them will come together and take this place over. Finn goes on to say that 2018 will be the year of Balor Club. And then Jason says, he's proud to be in the Champions Club. And then the look on Seth Rollins' face was freaking hilarious. And it was just so corny. It was very corny what, Jason says here with the Champions Club. It was just very cheesy and corny. But Gallows ends up calling, Jason a nerd. And it pisses Jason off, and he wants to take a shot at Gallows. And then we had Seth and Roman hold Jason back. Kurt Angle ends up coming out and says, in the main event, it will be a 6-man tag team match between Balor, Gallows, and Anderson, and Seth Rollins, Jason Jordan, and Roman Reigns. And that pretty much ended the segment. But it was a pretty decent segment to open up Raw with. And then we get to the first match tonight. It was the women's match. It was Bayley and Sasha Banks versus Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville of Absolution. We had Mickie James and Paige outside, at ringside. And this match, it was pretty decent. It was back and forth between them. Bayley ended up starting the match with Mandy Rose in the ring. Mandy Rose working on Bayley through parts of the match. But in the end, Bayley and Sasha won the match. Sasha ended up hitting the bank statement on Mandy Rose for them to score the win. So all in all, it was a decent match. Wasn't bad. And then after that, we saw Cedric Alexander and Goldust in the locker room. Goldust was saying to Cedric for him to. A funny thing that he said to Cedric was for him to eat lightning and crap thunder. It was funny though. Gotta love Goldust. And now I saw in an article saying that Goldust, they're going to be putting him in the... sorry about that, but I was saying in an article I read that they said that they were trying to put Goldust in the Cruiserweights in the 205 Live Cruiserweight division, which feels so out of place. But Cedric says to Goldust that, you know, this match is big for him tonight, you know, because his match with Enzo for the Cruiserweight title was going to happen tonight, which it didn't happen last week because Enzo was sick. He was in the hospital. He had the flu and he had to be sent home. So, but Goldust ends up saying to Cedric, you know, his dreams are not, you know, Enzo or the Zoe train, and you know, it's, you know, of course, you know, him, you know, it's Cedric's dreams to winning, you know, the Cruiserweight title. So thought it was a decent segment in the locker room between Cedric and Goldust. And then we had, of course, the second match. We had a debut in WOKEN, Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy and his WOKEN gimmick debuted first time tonight, and really liked his entrance. It was really cool, really awesome. He ended up taking on Curt Hawkins. So if it's a Curt Hawkins match, you know who wins. Yes, Matt Hardy won the match with the twist of fate on Curt Hawkins, and Hawkins' losing streak ends up continuing. You know, this jobber still, you know, losing matches. He's going to set a record for, you know, losses that he has with this company. And then you had, after the match, Bray Wyatt appears in the ring, and then both of them just, you know, stare face to face, and they're just laughing, which was really funny, especially from Matt Hardy with the you know, it's just funny. I really like when he does that. It's just really funny. He gives me a good laugh. And before the match, forgot to mention, Matt Hardy says, you know, he's entering the Royal Rumble matchup. So that's pretty cool. It's also kind of disappointing because I thought maybe they would set up a match for him and Bray at the Royal Rumble, but that's pretty much not going to happen now since Matt is in the Royal Rumble. So, but all in all, it was just the match between Matt and Curt Hawkins. It was really pretty much nothing. It was just, you know, Matt, you know, them making Matt Hardy trying to look strong. So it was pretty much nothing, except Matt Hardy, you know, got the enjoyment out of it. Then after that we had Elias. He's singing out. He was out there singing, you know, singing. He was singing about Elvis, you know, kind of, you know, disrespecting Elvis. And he ends up introducing The Miz. Yes, The Miz returned tonight, you know, after he was filming his Marine 6 film. And you know, he got a big pop. He got a big pop from the crowd. They were all chanting, "Welcome back." You know, and then we had Miz come out from Miz TV. You know, he says, "Oh, did you all miss me?" And the crowd started, you know, cheering for him. He goes on to say that he was not forgotten by two people, and that was Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, his Miztourage. You know, Curtis ends up saying 2017 was the best year for him thanks to Miz. And Bo thanks, you know, Miz, and, you know, he got him a gift. He got Miz a gift, which was a frame with the photo of Miz in it. Sorry about that, but I was saying Bo Dallas got Miz a gift, and it was a frame with, you know, Miz with Miz in it, a photo of Miz in the frame. And then Curtis says he got him a sports coat where he really just, took it off of him. Curtis just took it off of him and gave it to Miz. And both Bo and Curtis, kept fighting on, who gives Miz the better gift. And Miz got, ticked off of that and told them both to sit down. And Miz goes on to say that 2017 was a good year for him. And he says, this year is going to be better for him. And he shows a clip of when he got put through the table with the triple power bomb from the Shield. And he goes on to say that Roman only borrowed his Intercontinental title. And Miz goes on to say that in 2018, he will be the longest reigning single Intercontinental champion. And he says to Roman that he hopes he enjoyed his spotlight and that it's coming to an end. And, he's coming to get back the Intercontinental title. So it was pretty good, pretty good segment, pretty good Miz TV segment. Glad to see Miz back. So, he got a new haircut because saw like in an article he had to get a cut for the movie, for the Marine 6 movie that he just shot and finished. So then after that we had Gallows, Anderson, and Balor in the locker room. Balor says tonight, they were going to make new memories, because they were, just sharing memories from back in the day of, with the three of them. And Balor says to them that both of them better keep both Gallows and Anderson better keep their eyes open and their legs moving. And he also goes on to say that they have an opportunity tonight, and that, of course, 2018 will be the year of Balor Club. And it was a pretty short segment with them. Just really like this pairing between Balor and Gallows and Anderson. I hope they keep them like this, and not break them up until maybe like later in the year. But who knows? But I like this pairing. I hope they keep it this way with Gallows, Anderson, and Balor. Because Balor needs it. Since he's been poorly booked past month. So, but after that we had Enzo coming out. It's going to be Enzo versus Cedric Alexander for the Cruiserweight title. Enzo ends up coming out, talks about the situation, about what happened last week, why he couldn't compete against Cedric Alexander for the Cruiserweight title. He says, because he was in the hospital with the flu, and he says, he flipped on, while he was home, he flipped on Raw, and he saw his Zoe train taking on Goldust and Cedric Alexander. And he then goes on to say that, he's going to end 2018 still the Cruiserweight champion. And, he says Cedric is, soft. And so that pretty much leads to the match. Cedric Alexander versus Enzo Amore for the Cruiserweight title. And this was a pretty good match. Really liked it. Cedric Alexander was really good in the match. Just back and forth of him just taking out Enzo. Point in the match where he ended up kicking Enzo in the face. He made Enzo bleed. He busted him right open. And the match took us, the match ended with Cedric Alexander win the match via countout, because when he went out of the ring, Enzo injured his leg, and Cedric won the match. He got back in the ring, won the match by countout, so he ended up winning the Cruiserweight title Enzo still retains the Intercontinental Cruiserweight title. And so because the doctors were checking on Enzo's leg. So, but the match was good. Really would have loved to see Cedric win the Cruiserweight title. So, but it was a good match. It was enjoyable. Just that that nasty kick that Cedric gave to Enzo, busted him wide open. So, and then when Raw came back from the commercial, we saw Enzo backstage. The doctors were checking on his ankle. He had Nia Jax come in. She checked on Enzo, and Enzo told her that he's fine. So it was pretty much basically that, just that little backstage segment with them. And then we saw Kurt Angle backstage with Cesaro and Sheamus. They come in. They tell Curt that he contracted them for the Raw Tag Team titles. They were supposed to have they're supposed to get their rematch. They want the rematch, and Curt says they will have their rematch at the Rumble. So it's going to be Cesaro and Sheamus versus Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins for the Raw Tag Team titles at the Rumble. Then, Cesaro and Sheamus, they want competition. Curt ends up telling them to head to the ring, and he's going to find them competition for them. And Miz ends up coming in. He tells Curt, does he know how to run the show? And he ends up saying, USA Network gave him a show, and it is official. Miz is going to have a show on the USA Network with him and Maurice. It's going to be a docuseries, a 6-episode docuseries, and it's going to be called Miz and Mrs., I think. But it's officially happening. And Curt, he ends up telling Curt to give him a rematch for the Intercontinental title against Roman Reigns at the 25th at the Raw 25 show, and Curt ends up giving him the match. So at Raw 25, it's going to be Miz versus Roman for the Intercontinental title. So possibly Miz is going to take the title back at Raw 25 in 2 weeks. So, but it was a decent backstage segment. And then we had Alexa Bliss approaches Asuka, saying that Asuka's time is running out, and Alexa ends up telling Asuka, to watch out for Nia. So it's just that little backstage scene with Alexa and Asuka. And then we had Apollo Crews and Titus O'Neil versus Cesaro and Sheamus. Decent, solid match. Back and forth between Apollo and Titus. And Cesaro and Sheamus, pretty good in the match. And the match ended shockingly where Apollo Crews and Titus O'Neil won the match. I was like, whoa, they actually won? And Titus ended up rolling up Sheamus for the win. And because Apollo ended up taking out Cesaro. So, yeah, it's shocking. Apollo Crews and Titus beat Cesaro and Sheamus. Since Apollo and Titus are, considered jobbers, I'm like, wow, they actually won the match. And how long? So, but maybe they're trying to push, to give Apollo and Titus, a push. So, that's pretty. It's pretty interesting. Let's see where they take this with Apollo and Titus. Okay, next, after that we had Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman come out. Heyman says, you know, there's a credo going on and it's old school. And he says, you know, Lesnar, you know, of course at the Rumble will take on Kane and Strowman. And he says Lesnar will walk into the Rumble saying he will pin Kane or Strowman, or that Lesnar's going to stack them on top of each other and pin them both. And he says Lesnar is the most dominating star in WWE, and that there is nobody that can put down Lesnar. And Kane then attacks Lesnar from behind while, you know, Lesnar's on the stage. And Kane just starts taking out Lesnar. They go backstage. Strowman ends up coming out of nowhere. He throws Lesnar, which was impressive. I was like, whoa. You know, it was just really awesome. And he also takes a case and slams it and throws it onto Kane. And we see Strowman go into this case. He takes out a grappling hook and he pulls it, you know, out, and he throws it on, I think you call it a thrust or something like that, or thrust. And he ends up yanking on the thrust, and the thrust actually comes down on both Lesnar and Kane. And I was like, this whole segment, this was the best segment of the night. Seeing Strowman, you know, this dominant, and, you know, throwing Lesnar, and, you know, just taking that grappling hook and pulling down on the thrust onto Lesnar and Kane. It was really awesome. It was impressive. So really enjoyed this segment that went on backstage, and it was just good. And after that, we saw Lesnar being put into an ambulance. You know, Heyman ends up going in the ambulance with Lesnar. So that pretty much happened. You know, the aftermath of what Strowman did. And then we had Samoa Joe versus Rhyno. Pretty much Joe just taking out Rhyno. He won the match with the Coquina clutch on Rhyno to score the win. It's pretty much just, you know, them. You know, it was pretty much Joe dominating through the match. Was okay match. Then after the match, Joe gets interviewed, and Joe says that Roman's little win was just a rogue victory, which came as a great cause. And he says that the cracks are coming, and he's going to finish the job on Roman. And he announces that he is going to be in the Royal Rumble match. And, you know, they bring up John Cena, and he says in the Rumble he will be the first man who eliminates Cena from the Rumble. Well, if he could. So, but Samoa Joe versus Rhyno was okay, but it was just, you know, Joe dominating through the match. Then we had Nia Jax backstage. Alexa approaches her saying, you know, she cares about Nia, and that, you know, she's worried that Enzo is holding Nia back. And Nia ends up telling Alexa that Enzo isn't holding her back, and that she wants to be champion, you know, like Enzo. And Nia then announces that she's entering the Royal Rumble, the Women's Royal Rumble. So it was just that little backstage segment with Nia and Alexa. Then it was supposed to be Nia versus Asuka. You know, Asuka comes out for her entrance. You know, she's on top of the on top of the turnbuckle, And then from out of nowhere, Nia comes. She picks up, Asuka on her shoulders, and then she just, does that back thing. I forgot what it's called, the back suplex to Asuka, and then she just, she does a leg drop on Asuka. Pretty much she just, took out Asuka, Nia. So the match never really got started. And then it was the main event. It was Gallows and Anderson and Balor versus Seth Rollins, Jason Jordan, and Roman Reigns. And this was a good main event. Really enjoyed Balor, Anderson, and Gallows in the match. They made a good, they make a good tag team and a good pairing. But the match ended with Jason Jordan was in the ring illegally because we saw Seth Rollins make the tag to Roman, which the referee didn't see because the ref was dealing with Jason Jordan. And it led to Gallows and Anderson hitting the Magic Killer on Seth Rollins. Jason was in there, just trying to talk to, trying to protect Seth, but Balor ended up coming in and drop kicking Seth, in the corner. And so pretty much led to Balor hitting the coup de grace on Rollins to score the win for him, Anderson, and Gallows. And then you had, after the match, Miz, Bo Dallas, and Curt will come out. They end up attacking Roman. Miz ends up hitting Roman with the skull crushing finale. They eventually leave the ring, but Miz had something in mind, and the crowd was just chanting one more time for Miz to take out Roman. Miz then tells Bo Dallas and Curt to pick up Roman, and Miz, Bo Dallas, and Curt mock the Shield because Miz, Bo Dallas, and Curt end up hitting Roman with the triple power bomb, just like how Roman, Seth, and Dean do it in the Shield. And that pretty much ended Raw. But all in all, the main event was, it was a good main event. I really liked it. And, yeah, so anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all back here tomorrow night for my SmackDown review. Bye.